Hey everyone! I thought I'd share the story how I created the competition course combo because I think it may be interesting to three kinds of people. Those wondering why it took over 2 years to make it, those curious how I made it, my planning process and how I stayed motivated, and those who want to learn more about problem solving, because more problem solving went into organizing this thing than I teach in the course itself. I'll also tell about some things that didn't make it in the final course. So if you're in one of these groups, enjoy. If not, let me know in the comments why you're still watching. Now let's get into it. At the start, I just had a basic idea to implement a vision-based positioning system using balls. The idea came while painting for that one challenge with the pendulum. Check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about. Everyone came up with really creative things in that one. Now I wanted to do positioning because it's something we rely on in our day-to-day lives. My PhD was related to it and my work at Microsoft as well, so I was quite comfortable with the topic, but I didn't have a good way to teach it. There is that one video on trilateration, but it's just me talking during class and thought a more practical approach would be nice. I wanted a DIY setup that anyone can make without expensive equipment. These balls cost next to nothing, and many people have some kind of camera. Like, did you know there are more smartphones than toothbrushes? Crazy world we live in. Someone should make a toothbrushing app. Award-winning idea right there. Another reason I chose it is because nowadays we can get our position with just one line of code. But that line is just a peak, covering thousands of years of development hidden from us through layers of abstraction. I think it's respectful to look inside from time to time. And I feel things are so simplified nowadays, I genuinely worry about how much we get to exercise our brain. Without understanding fundamentals like these, we cannot create something truly groundbreaking, or even explain why current methods fail sometimes. We just accept that they do and learn to live with it. I want my students to be better than that. Anyway, when I started, I didn't even think about drawings. I just experimented finding the camera position using two balls on a couch in my living room. It worked somehow, but the setup wasn't really precise, and I had to go on a trip soon. So, how to make progress on this while on the move? I wasn't gonna carry those balls with me, so I built a simulator using Three.js. I used AI for that and got a quick prototype working in minutes. There I could experiment with different setups and change other things too if needed, like repainting the balls to tell which one is which. The idea to add drawings into the mix came as I began visualizing movement paths. I'm sure it's also because my no black box machine learning course was ongoing, the one where people helped me collect data by drawing a bunch of stuff. I even fed some of those to the simulator to experiment with more complex movement paths. Back then, I also started organizing competitions and I liked how interactive they were. So I thought, what if I frame it as Guess the Secret Drawings? That would still familiarize them with positioning systems on a smaller scale, but in a more exciting way, like solving a mystery. Then after the event, I would publish a video teaching those techniques used to solve the problem. So the idea of a course competition combo emerged at this point. Tentative titles I had back then were Decode the Drawings and Vision-Based Positioning in JavaScript. I got excited and started recording real footage. I noticed the pen makes quite a lot of noise when moving on the paper, so we could detect pen up using it. But I had fears it's too much. How do you even name a video like that? Trilateration, image and audio processing? Silly, isn't it? I mean, who is this for? Who needs to learn those three specific things together like that? I thought to remove the image processing entirely from the mix. Drastic change, I know, but it almost happened. I toyed with the idea of doing positioning from the audio itself. Instead of two balls, we'd use two speakers emitting sound at different frequencies. It was challenging indoors with sound bouncing off the walls, but worked okay outside. In the winter, when the snow was dampening other sounds. The noise from the speakers was really annoying though, so I switched to frequencies outside human hearing range. I experimented a lot with this, but my channel focuses on explaining things visually. And now we couldn't even hear the sound. It made the whole thing too abstract and more expensive. So none of these made it into the final course, but I was quite impressed to see participants coming up with similar ideas during the competition. Christmas was coming soon, and I thought I could start the challenge then, in 2023. Obviously, that didn't happen for another year and a half. But anyway, I thought it seemed like a realistic deadline at the time. I just stick to drawing things without lifting the pen. A circle, a star, and a house you can draw in this way. Processing those videos was a nightmare compared to the simulation. Turns out the shadows changed the colors too much. The glossy paint as well. There were even places where different colors looked the same. Image processing is surprisingly hard. Even though it looks good to us, the computer doesn't think the same way. I could solve it using a bunch of different methods, but then the challenge was more about image processing than positioning. I didn't like it. I wanted the input to be easy to segment. But buying paint, repainting the balls, filming again, running experiments, all these take time, and I had to give up on the Christmas deadline. Since nothing was pushing me to do this, I started thinking more about the challenge. What if someone guesses the drawing, but another person does a better job reconstructing it afterwards? Who should win in this case? I also didn't like not knowing how close we can get to the real drawings, so I started solving the problem in the best way I could. I realized the pen was long enough that even a small tilt had significant impact, and to correct for it, I added another ball. Doing this is more difficult, but I thought participants could choose whether they do it or not. And many did ignore one of the balls in the beginning to solve a simpler version of the problem. Now, adding another ball like that worried me a bit. I knew there are marker-based positioning methods used in AR, robotics, and mocap, and I didn't want participants to quickly solve the problem using existing tools. I started learning about the perspective 3-point problem and tried out some libraries. I noticed my balls aren't exactly point markers like those libraries expect. They are quite big, and because of distortion, their apparent center of mass is not aligning with the real one. I also learned P3P outputs 4 different solutions because 3 markers look the same from 4 different places. I wasn't so worried anymore, but when I learned about the critical cylinder problem, I really stopped worrying. I made sure to cross it with every single drawing. During the competition, James experimented with this too, but couldn't get it to work. He also found a nice video teaching it. Have a look in case you want to understand these things, because I don't talk about any of it in the course, but they are related. From what I could find, this new setup with the balls made the problem non-standard, having to use a combination of angles and apparent size differences to get good results. I also tried LLMs to see if they could solve it, but all they did was suggest standard stuff. I had to guide them in very specific ways to get something useful, but that was me solving the problem, not them. So I felt confident I had a good challenge. These are hard to come by nowadays. Then I started thinking about the pen. Long or short? A shorter pen makes it easier to locate the tip. It's just underneath, really, even when slightly tilted. A longer one adds the extra challenge. And I experimented with different setups. My camera has this small tripod which was great for this purpose. I could fit one of those pen refills in there. And after experimenting, I decided 18 centimeters gave a decent challenge. I also set 18 for the initial distance to the wall. It didn't matter much what I used for that one, but having the same value for both means 0 chance for participants to confuse the two. Sometimes a small hiccup like that can take a long time to figure out, and it's really annoying. So why have anyone go through that? Now, this offset here is something that I had to think about a lot. What do I do with it? Of course, I could have added it to the setup, but then it's quite confusing with so many details and really specific. In the end, I made the pen align with the lens to keep it simple. But now I didn't want to show this crazy thing to participants. It would raise even more questions, even more confusing, so I relied on misdirection, a trick magicians use all the time. You see, I presented a simple-looking camera pen that doesn't attract attention. I mostly showed it from the side or from the back, so the misalignment is not obvious. And in the virtual demo, things align as expected. All of this worked, and believe it or not, no one asked about it to this day. Now, even though I used the linear FOV on my camera, projective distortion was still there. So I experimented with different ways to account for that. I tried asking LLMs, and all of them suggested I estimate camera parameters and do lens distortion correction. I think they recommended those because there are so many camera lenses and settings nowadays, it would be the safest approach in general. But overcomplicated in this case when the pinhole camera model is enough. I did think about using some other setting, but in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't, because this proved to be quite challenging like this as well. I was surprised I knew the math for the pinhole camera model already, since it's the same as in map projections I was familiar with. Somewhere here I realized that I could teach this the other way around. Like, make students realize that now they know something about maps as well. This made me wonder what other connections there might be. So I started looking and found quite a lot. This is when I thought to change the topic from vision-based positioning to a more general computational problem-solving. I still think the first one is the better title when it comes to YouTube. It describes the problem precisely, and the algorithm will do a good job figuring out the audience. But I started thinking more about this problem as a platform to teach various concepts, mathematics, and algorithms. I tried different ways to estimate the camera position, for example, like geometric and analytical approaches, and optimization techniques like local search and gradient descent. Even some really exotic ones I decided to leave out. It was clear to see that all of those have to lead to the same answer, and I thought others would benefit from seeing these connections. So I had to make a choice. Focus topic that will probably reach more people, or a deeper learning experience that wouldn't. I went with the second, because the most valuable thing now is not understanding the solution to this problem, but the way of thinking, an approach to solve problems I learned over the years. This problem is just a really good example to teach it in practice. Now I had to think, how do I go about teaching multiple methods like that? Because if students hear about one that works, why would they care about the others? To try and make them care, the course now teaches some methods that are okay-ish and leaves those that give better results as homework. I hope this motivates them to do it, but still waiting for the first homework to appear. If this will work, I couldn't find if this approach has a name. Do any of you know? If not, I'm coining the term hooking homework. At this point, over a year passed since I started experimenting with different approaches, and I thought I had a solid plan. But then Toriyama passed away. I did a live stream at the time, but since he drew for a living, and I like Dragon Ball so much, I felt I had to add Goku next to the other drawings. But drawing Goku with that setup was a nightmare. The character was too detailed. I would make mistakes and don't have an eraser to correct them. I tried tracing an existing drawing, but even that was hard. It meant focusing on the lines while also making sure the balls are in frame. Incredibly difficult, I couldn't do it. I was determined to do it though, and by hand, not using some kind of robot arm that does the drawing for me. I tried borrowing an Insta360 from work. That way I didn't need to worry about where the camera was pointing, but the new math required to solve the problem was too hard. And I would have had to give more details about the setup. Very scary to those new to this kind of thing. I thought about these so much, and I realize how stupid this must sound. Overcomplicating myself all of a sudden. Part of me thought to just draw a Dragon Ball. But another part didn't like that idea. It had to be Goku. You see, what I didn't tell about was my motivation going up and down recently. I often thought I didn't need to organize this thing. It's just a passion project I was doing progress on from time to time. I thought to give it up many times, but I believed the learning experience in this one could be special. But I also thought people won't care, because there's no hype around this topic like it was for self-driving cars, for example. Maybe this whole thing is for nothing. These kind of thoughts often came because it's a long time since that initial excitement. And there was still a long way to go. No matter if I added Goku or not, there was no guarantee I could pull it off. But I knew that adding him, despite the extra challenges, made this fun again for me. So it was a psychological trick I played on myself. And a detailed drawing like that can be impressive to use in the intro. The fact that we can estimate with such precision, I mean. So there were some other benefits to solving it, not just me being stubborn. So how did I solve it? Well, I tried making cardboard templates to guide the pen, so I could focus more on camera work and less on precision. This one took a day to make, but I started with simpler drawings first to understand how to build this complex one. Working on simpler versions of the problem first? Sound familiar? Anyway, even for the house I needed flaps. And eventually I figured out how to make them for Goku as well. But the pen kept sticking to the sides, which caused the camera to shake. It doesn't look very bad to us, but my code failed horribly with these inputs. A deblurring step was a must, and that's no beginner task. Even recognizing that motion blur is high priority is not obvious. I needed to remove the blur. I went to buy a gimbal, thinking it will help. And while driving back from the store, I realized it would make estimating the tilt impossible, because that thing at the top does whatever it wants. So I turned back and returned it without even testing it. I had to rethink everything so many times. In the end, I made it work with this new kind of template. I cut thin slices, laminated the paper, and traced grooves so the pen would glide in the center. It gently slides to the middle, reminiscent of the gradient descent I teach in the course itself. I even added bicycle oil on top so it glides smoothly, and it worked really well, except for a few parts where I didn't heat the plastic enough. I can actually hear a difference. The camera shakes more in these regions, and it's why some parts of the drawing aren't decoded as well as others. Now participants didn't need to know how to work with blur to get good-looking results. I never teach how to do it in the course, so it's an open question, and even you can be the first to figure it out. So far, AOSAS was the only one to try, but wasn't able to fix it. Now these new templates solved many problems but created a new one. How to compare participants' drawings to the originals. Before I scanned the drawings I made and did some image processing, skeletonization and some cleanup. But now the pen doesn't leave a trace. I no longer had physical drawings to scan, so I did everything in reverse. I traced my sketches using the advanced drawing app we built during my live streams. Those traces were used to make the templates, and I also took the vector data to use as ground truth. And because I used vector data, I didn't need to impose a specific scale. I always think fewer restrictions means more fun, and less intimidating to people. At this stage I added few more drawings too. A question mark, because I thought it's funny that the secret drawing is the mystery symbol itself. Then I added a tree, because I thought maybe I can start the challenge this upcoming Christmas. Again, you know that didn't happen for another half year. Because I had to redo the drawings 4 different times. First, I repainted the balls with matte paint, but I couldn't find a green that was similarly saturated as the others. Also, there was bad lighting. I fixed the lights and painted again with a different matte green paint. It was glossy compared to the others. I then mixed the two green colors until I got something decent for segmentation. So participants could segment in straightforward ways and get something that looked okay. I believe this was really important, because if participants couldn't make quick progress in the beginning, they might abandon the whole thing. Even like this, it wasn't trivial. There were questions about the best way to segment. Just imagine how it would have been using this input. Then I thought that those background markings could help people cheat by using PNP, essentially considering them as additional markers. My girlfriend also said the pattern looks like a dog, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I really wanted this to make you think about satellites in space. No other distraction. But now there was a dog in the scene. Imagine that exercise I gave during the course, where I asked you to explain what you see, and Leonard answered something. Like this, he would have talked about dogs for all we know. So I ordered a giant paper roll and started thinking how to position the balls on the spot. Because I used to prep everything on a small black paper and just attach it there in the filming room. That was relatively easy to build. I could manipulate the balls from both sides and glue them into place quite precisely. Now I couldn't do that. The paper was too big. I had to come up with a new system. and decided to use magnets and a thin metal sheet behind the paper. It worked well, and I thought, hey, I could use this trick to make the diploma as well. To me, it looked like something really special because of all the effort that went into it. Not sure what the others think, but at least it's different than a flat sheet of paper winners usually get. While fixing all these issues with the setup, I also started talking with Bogdan, someone I respected since high school. He used to win like every coding competition back then, leaving me and everyone else in the dust. He could code Photoshop while in high school pretty much. So I wanted to see if he can help with this thing, and he gave me a lot of feedback I used to adjust the content. He commented how it's too long. And it still is, I know, but I managed to reduce the length by over an hour. I took out the software engineering part. Originally, I used modules and supported different solutions by changing parameter settings. But the main problem was hard enough, and worrying about the engineering issues at the same time would have been too distracting. I also added 3JS into the mix, because 3JS is not part of the final solution. We just used it to understand the problem the same way we used Desmos or even those rods to understand trilateration. Bogdan also pointed out problems with the competition web page. There were security issues, language and clarity problems, concerns about the automatic evaluation. Should there be one? And do I use the right method for it? He helped with many other things as well, and I'm not sure how I can repay him for it. Bogdan is very straightforward, and much of his feedback was harsh and to the point. But that's why I asked him for help. I'm used to this from the years of doing research, and know that without such feedback nothing would change. You need to accept it and be flexible if you want to improve. I felt real support from him and from my colleagues at Karelia who helped me in many ways. With the mathematics, all kinds of resources, Finnish translations, popularizing the course, and just talking, making jokes. All these helped with motivation in those hard times. Any little push helped, like from my colleagues, family and friends. Without them, this course wouldn't have happened. Now, involving others like that can be a bad thing, depending on the kind of person you are. One can feel immense stress that they must live up to the promises. And if the project fails, it's embarrassing. So I wouldn't recommend you do that unless you know you can handle it. I also used the techniques in that Web of Motivation video I made a while ago. I started tying this project to other things as well, like my work, the 4th Summer of Math exposition, despite knowing it was way too long for that one, Dragon Ball, as I mentioned earlier, and even this video you're watching now has been on my to-do list for over a year. I felt my motivation for making videos slowly fading, and decided in this final course I share as much as I can. It may seem long, but most of the things I know about problem solving are packed inside it. Knowing those served me well, and despite the risk that it won't be watched by many people, I'm pretty sure some people will give it a chance, and it will be worth it for them. Now, some things in that web will only happen later, some things didn't work out, and some things just didn't make it in the final video. Like, I didn't include an experiment where I took gym balls from our physiotherapy department on a frozen lake and recorded me walking along a triangle to compare with satellite positioning. The experiment was a success. The vision-based system is way better when close to the balls like that, more accurate, and we get 30 points per second compared to about 1 per second with the satellites. I wanted to include this in the course so badly, especially after what Minion Toby said, but I couldn't find a place for it that wouldn't disturb the flow. So it didn't materialize. Until now. I also wanted to show how to tie gradient descent to neural networks and use the same code from the self-driving car to solve this problem as well. But again, it would have disturbed the flow too much, the course would have been significantly longer, and not necessarily more exciting just because self-driving cars are involved. They wouldn't have been the center stage, so to speak. There were other ideas like that I didn't include, but I'm keeping them secret for now. Now back to the story. After all the props were ready, filming the material for the competition took 2 days. Day 1 went just for placing the balls on the wall. Literally almost 100 takes to draw the star, because I could still measure errors in the ball positions, the level of the table, and so on. I used the star to adjust these because the points and symmetry helped more than using the circle, and I could draw it almost at the same speed. In day 2, I did all 6 of the drawings, multiple times, so I can choose the best one afterwards. It's not obvious at all that drawing those was really exhausting. When I was done with each of them, I sounded like this. It was also hard because I was not trying to make any noise, even breathing very lightly just in case the participants wanted to use the audio to detect the pen up. And they did. Drawing carefully like that was essential for the competition, so the participants feel rewarded when their result starts to look like something, and it gets better and better as their solution improves. It's like they are the ones drawing the things in a way, and they become better drawers. I did think to make some of the drawings harder to decode on purpose, like maybe tilting the pen more, but I didn't know how talented the participants will be and wanted them to decode everything by the end. So I didn't do any tricks like that and regret it in hindsight. The first 5 drawings were revealed all at once. The following week, I set up the competition page, decided to call it Decode the Drawings instead of Decrypt the Drawings, recorded and edited the video, and launched the challenge. Participants started their hard work, and so did I, because I had to track what they're doing so I can add their techniques into the course. I've done many changes to my lesson plan and to the code based on what everyone is doing. Just now, what comes to mind, I took the way we load videos from Yusuf, the coordinate system from AOSAS, some math from James, trilateration from Danny, visualization from Dimitro, and various ideas from Minion Toby, Krell, Explore Infinity, the simulation from Bus, and other things you probably notice if you watch status updates or read the long conversation on Discord. Thanks to all who participated and helped me make this course. You helped perhaps more than you realize. You see, I knew these things already, but by watching you, I could rediscover them from your eyes and find a way to teach them through discovery. This way, things are more likely to stick than just presenting facts. Then, with the competition ending, I did the filming, editing, and animations relatively quickly. And I think it ended up nice, almost as good as I envisioned it to be. I say almost because I always stop polishing at around 80%, otherwise I never finish anything. Now, you may think this course took long to plan, but it's average really. On YouTube, the self-driving car phases 1 and 2 were about 1.5 years each. But phase 3 took 6 years. I got the idea for an editable neural network from 3Blue1Brown when he posted his video. Since then, I thought how to make something so tedious exciting. I tried many different applications, but only when the self-driving car course became so popular, it was clear it had to be the focus. But yeah, after 2 years and countless experiments, the course is done. And it's yours now. I hope you learn from it and use those things to solve difficult problems. Oh, and remember to brush your teeth. I can't believe that statistic is true.